We are live here at Aldeguer compound. And, Dave, this is, by the way, guys, this is episode 44.
Of the Big Picture podcast, where we help you see,
Think, and act big.
Yes.
And, this is the first episode for the year for the Big Picture podcast. And we would like to start with a bang, guys. We would like to start with, something that I'm pretty sure, you've been looking forward to. We had a lot of great episodes last year, and so we want to start with, a very interesting guest for today. Our guest for today is, the president and a CEO of Islands Group. So if you're not familiar with Islands,
we just had that sinulog, right?
Yeah,
And,
Islands Group is like one of the hottest brands, in the Philippines, especially in Sinulog season. It's difficult not to
wear one.
to see them like every single corner. Like you're probably, we just celebrated, by the way, the Sinulog season, and probably every single person there that's wearing a what's it?
I'd like to believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
probably
from
one of his products, right?
Yeah, one of his products.
Your closet.
And so we're so excited to bring here, ladies and gentlemen, friends from the Big Picture podcast, Jay Aldeguer. Hi, Jay.
Hey, Joseph, Dave. Thanks for having me. Big Picture. Congratulations. I think. It's such an honor that you've chosen me to be your first guest this year.
Yes. So usually we start with getting to know who our guests. So not everyone knows Jay, right? But for most our entrepreneurs, they probably have an idea. So for those who don't know your story, can you share to us who you are and how you become this CEO of the Island Group?
Okay, that's going to be tough, but
in 1 minute. Just kidding.
Okay. I've been in the islands business for over 25 years. So that kind of dates me, meaning
You started when you were 8?
I started almost. No, but
Wow.
kidding aside, my entrepreneurship journey started when I was very young. That's why when people ask me, how did you start this business and so on and so forth, somehow, I'm forced to look back to where it all started. And I've told this story many times. You must have heard it, Joseph, at one point. When I was younger, sometime in grade school, I would be drawing in class, cartoon characters. And one day, a classmate leaned over to me and asked me if he could buy my drawing, and I didn't think of selling it or anything, but he offered me 1 peso for the drawing. And I don't know, the word entrepreneurship wasn't, a buzzword then yet, but something kicked in. I said, you know what? Sure, I'll sell that to you. And if you want for another 50 centavos, I'll color the drawing for you. And he paid me. So
You did an upsell.
yeah, so at that time, when somebody likes something that you create, and something you're passionate about, it does wonders, especially for a young boy, And I think I was about 10, 11 at that time. So a few other classmates ordered drawings from me, and I think that was my first foray into salesmanship or entrepreneurship. But that was the beginning, and I continued getting into different business ventures, even until college. I went to Manila for college at the Ateneo, and I would go around in a backpack with T-shirts inside instead of books. And I would be selling plain colored T-shirts to my classmates. And, even if my parents had given me allowance at that time, always, kulang mo na always, no? So, if you go out on dates, you go out on parties, buy stuff, you want to have extra income. So I was selling shirts. I made some pretty good money at that time. So, I was so excited about selling stuff, creating ideas, and then after selling shirts, I also went into a big basketball promotion. I promoted the PBA All Stars, brought them to Cebu against the Cebu All Stars, and it was such a big hit. I was only, I think, 18, 19 years old then.
Yeah. Wow.
And I had 2 partners who were also from Cebu and studying in Manila as well, John Ditian and Richard Lee, who are still very close friends of mine. We were partners, the 3 of us, and we brought that promotion to Cebu and made some good money. So that was the beginning.
So that's interesting because when you were at a very young age, you were already like you already felt the joy of like getting a sale.
Well, yes, creating things and getting a sale incidentally, and coming up with ideas that people are enamored with, and
Yeah.
so and the best thing was that my parents were very supportive. So, at a young age when I was drawing and I would buy coloring materials, and of course my parents gave me extra money to buy materials so that I could sell my drawings. Normally parents would frown upon things like that, focus on your studies, don't engage in business. But so I have to say that the environment at home was also very conducive. My parents were very supportive.
Who were your like early influences?
My parents, I would say,
Business people also?
they're very successful businessmen. Both my dad and my mom. So
That's
it was there. It was the
Luwalde
environment.
brand.
Luwalde,
Yeah.
was started by my parents. And then you have Ala Promotions
Ala
also, which is now an international, the only Asian-based boxing promotional company in the U.S. that's run now by my brother. So that we had that environment when we were young, and that helped.
So most of the time, especially when you're young and you have this idea, normally, people would, I would say, a lot of people actually would just keep their idea on the side. Yeah. But in your case, for the the basketball promotion that you've organized, what was it that made you feel like this has to be done and this has to be done by me?
That's a very good question, especially when you in your guide questionnaire you're down the road, you're going to be asking me what books I recommend or what books I've read. And one of the books that I always suggest to young entrepreneurs is this book called Making Ideas Happen by Scott Belkin. And you're right. A lot of people like to keep their ideas in their head because while it's in their head, it's still so romantic. Everything's perfect. The product is nice. Everybody loves your product. So people like to keep it in your head and never get around to doing it because because of the fear of failure or rejection. This book somehow tells you to gain traction, put it out there, see if your product has potential, and so on and so forth. We'll get to that a little bit later, but yes, I don't know, for some reason, again, maybe because it started from a young age with my
One
drawings
peso.
and my drawings, and people were like, very interested in something that you did. As I said, it does wonders to a young child. No, not the earnings, but more, your development of self-belief and
You have something that
confidence.
the world wants.
Correct. Yes,
Yeah.
and I'm sure
Awesome.
every young person out there, especially today, I think the youth today have so much ideas, have brilliant ideas and amazing talent. But the important thing is to try to make something out of it, and not be fearful. So I guess early on I had that confidence, and that brought my.
What was that like from like the support that your God? I mean, you
Yes,
could
it
get,
helps. Yes, it helps from every aspect. From your classmates that just says "Ninduta sa imong drawing by." That alone says a lot. And then your dad goes, "Wow, you're making this and that. Okay, good job." Right. And right now the culture of entrepreneurship is very strong in the Philippines. 20, even 10 years ago, that wasn't the case. You know, as you've said, most parents really want their dream for their children is to finish college, rise up the corporate ladder, or go abroad.
That's true.
And so entrepreneurship was frowned upon. Oftentimes it was called sideline or racket, or and the thought in the past was that business was only for older people. So it was very rare that young people were engaging in business, mainstream business.
Yeah.
So yeah, and moving on to Island. So when I graduated in '91, I couldn't wait to get into business. So aside from helping with the family business, I also started to develop Island Souvenirs in 1992. So that's more than 25
Is
years.
this like already brewing when you were selling those shirts, or is it?
No. No. Actually, no. Believe it or not, when I was growing up, I wasn't hell bent on becoming a businessman. I was just open to possibilities. In college, I took up interdisciplinary studies, which allowed me to choose different disciplines and take up different electives. So I took up different electives from, music appreciation to movie critiquing to great books, stuff like that. So I really wanted to see what was out there, and so yes, and then eventually I got into Island Souvenirs.
So how did you like make the pick? Like I'm gonna go with Island Souvenirs.
Oh, okay. After college, I was very fortunate. Since I did well in college, my parents gifted me with a trip abroad, both to the U.S. and in Europe. So I went backpacking around Europe, and my first stop, since I took up some fine arts classes, I was so enamored by all the great artists there. Da Vinci and Michelangelo and so on and so forth. So I started buying books on my first stop, right? Which was actually in France. So I got exposed to a few French artists as well, and started buying books, and then realized I was backpacking that I couldn't lug all of my books. So my first stop pa lang, I already mailed them back to the Philippines and decided to get something more practical. So I said, you know what, I'll just get shirts. I'll just get t-shirts. And then get a shirt every destination that I go to. And especially when you're, backpacking for over a month, you don't have much, you don't have so many clothes or you don't have too much change of clothes. So you have to recycle, wash, recycle. So t-shirts were the perfect thing. And then I bought shirts from all over. And I kept using them. And then after that trip, I also did a local trip. I went to Boracay, Baguio, and so on and so forth. I realized that we didn't have nice souvenir shirts, no?
What year was this?
1992. 91. Sorry, 91. So around that time, nothing was happening. Most of the T-shirts were very outdated in design. Very traditional. A lot of handicrafts and things like that. So I felt that there was an opportunity for a business here. So there, and in 1992, that's when we set up Island Souvenirs.
Right. So I was curious about the art actually. So when you were a kid, what were the drawings that you were doing?
Well, I did a lot of caricatures.
I see.
Yeah, I was always I enjoyed drawing. I enjoyed listening to music. I was collecting vinyl as early as grade 5. I would go to record stores and just look at vinyls, and oftentimes I would buy a record of a band I barely knew, but I thought their album cover was so cool, so I would buy them. And then after a few years, I realized that they were, Everything But the Girl, and then U2 and the Police. So I was listening to these guys when I was 10 years old and 11 years old. So yeah, and I'm happy to say I still have the vinyls with me. So my son's using them. Yeah.
The ideas come from like everywhere.
I don't know. I guess so. It's not a conscious effort, but I guess the balance of the sciences and the arts, help. Well, I'd like to believe make me more well-rounded. I guess, yeah.
Because that's a common problem with creative people, right? So they usually don't.
Yes. So my disciplines when I in college were management and communications, but then all around I had so many other electives. And I had a curious mind when I was a young boy. Meaning I would take up classes that I wasn't familiar with and just to see what was out there.
Sure.
Yeah. So Island Souvenir, Island, like what was the
Souvenirs? Yeah, Island Souvenirs.
What was the first?
Yeah, Island Souvenirs is really the mother company of the Islands Group. Yeah. Oh.
So where did you launch this, and then how did you select that? You know what, this is the place that I'm gonna do.
Well, there weren't too many options really in the early '90s, and White Gold House that was owned by the late Joseph Gaisano. Was the place to be. I mean, it was the main. There was Barna. No one. Yeah, everybody else was a far second at that time. So I talked to him, broached to him the concept. He gave me an opportunity to set up a cart. It was a small cart. The story is really funny. Again, when you're a frustrated artist and you're an entrepreneur, you like to mix both. So I designed my cart. I drew it.
Design it.
Yeah, and then I brought it to I don't know if you've seen the furniture makers in front of UP in Lahog.
Yeah,
the bamboo makers, right? So I went there, and I still remember the guy that I approached, si Rene, And I showed him my drawing, and he goes, "Oh, dali ka ni. I'll charge you 1,500 pesos." And at that time, that was a lot of money. So he goes, "Come back after 1 week." His shop was in Nivelle Hills. I can still remember where it was exactly. So I went up very excited. And then I looked at the cart. Then the guy goes, mauna ni siya. You go, "Sure ka, mauna ni." It looked like a boat, It didn't look anything like my drawing. The proportions were off. It was really bad. But, I kept laughing, and the guy was patient enough. Then I said, "Let's shave this part off. Let's lessen the kogon or whatever." And then, so he rectified it for an additional 300 pesos. And then, I brought the cart to White Gold department store, and I started selling. And, I was very fortunate. The day we started selling, on our first month, we did extremely well. Very well. So, the department store owners and the managers were pretty impressed that after 6 months or 8 months, they gave me a bigger space of about 30 square meters. And then in like a year's time, they gave me a space of about 100 square meters in White Gold. And and then soon enough, in less than like a year or two, we became the top selling non-food brand in that floor.
Wow. So we're mainly shirts, right?
It resonated.
Yes, they were
What were the
shirts.
first products?
They were shirts. No, I had bags, mugs. As early as that time, I already had a vision of a whole line of souvenir products. No, so, and I think the market at that time was very mature. Tourism was, especially in Cebu, was a big thing. It was booming. The airport at that time had just been converted into an international airport. And then the Shangri-La had just opened. So there was perfect timing. There was an influx of tourists, and so the demand was there. But I think nobody met that demand.
Is that something that you've recognized after the sale or
After,
like prior?
I just knew that there were no cool souvenirs out there.
Okay.
And how old are you?
35.
35, and you're
31.
31. Okay, I don't know if you remember, but there was a time in the 80s or 70s that you will never see any Filipino caught dead wearing a local T-shirt. No, a local T-shirt, whether a souvenir or people always wanted to have California or Maui or Hawaii. We were very, we had a colonial mentality, and no one would be caught dead wearing a local shirt. So it was quite a breakthrough that we were surprised that not only tourists were buying our shirts, the locals were buying them and wearing them. And then because of the nice design, they were proud to wear Cebu on their chest and then, Baraka and stuff like that. So it, I didn't think that far. I wasn't that ambitious. I just thought that, I think we should have nice shirts out there. And then because of the sales, we started to realize that there was such a big demand, but no one served that demand. That's why sales picked up immediately. And then another aspect was that, Filipinos were proud to wear shirts that were nicely designed that had local destinations on them.
Yeah, I was curious, like when you first started this stall, right? You were thinking about the foreign tourists. Am I correct? Or what? Were you
Not necessarily. No, not necessarily. We have a misconception. We always when we think of tourists, we think of foreign tourists.
Yeah, foreign tourists.
But do you know we only draw less than 5 million foreign tourists a year to the Philippines, or approximately that number, and half of them are balikbayans. Okay, while the local travelers in the Philippines, I think as of last year, has exceeded more than 60 million.
Wow.
See,
So
even
really
the
the
hotels.
Filipinos.
Yeah, it's really the Filipinos.
Yes, I mean the foreign tourists also buy, but it's really the Filipino traveler. That's keeping a lot of our establishments afloat, even hotels and stuff like that. I don't know if you remember in the 90s or even early 2000s, you would never see Filipinos in the top hotels because rates were always for foreigners, and they made it difficult for locals to enjoy the resorts. But lately, the past decade or so, we're having a lot of locals now patronize a lot of the tourist establishments.
Okay, let me just break down a little bit on your cart, because like it seems to me that was your kind of your test Is it like a test for you? Is it like, oh, this is it? I will project that. How sure,
I
how
don't,
your gut feel?
I don't mean to be cocky or but when you're young and you have nothing to lose, you really think that this is really going to go all the way.
Yeah.
Of course, the fear is there, and sleepless nights. But the confidence that it will succeed was also there. So I was pretty confident. And the important thing, I think, and I think this is also important for most businesses, is that especially in the IT industry, you've heard the word pivot, right? So along the way, the germ of the idea is there, your concept, but then along the way, you really have to pivot. You have to make adjustments along the way. And then you will really see the light. You just have to have the endurance, determination to see it through. So I was confident that I had that. In other words, I had the grit, I think, and resiliency to see it through. So I had that confidence. Did I know that the company, the business would be this big? No. But I was confident that I would be able to scale the business. Yeah.
Was it like a fairy tale where it went happily ever after, or were there times
no, first of all, it's never for business. It's rarely the case. It's never always a smooth ride. But my Island Souvenirs was unique in the sense that they would keep calling it the birth pains, especially in the startup stage. We didn't really have that. We were very fortunate that our business did well on the onset. And that really helps a lot, especially in retail.
Why do you think that's the case?
Well, I think the market was mature. That's very important. Until now, I always look for, when I get into other businesses, I always look for businesses where the market is mature already. And
sure you mean ready,
and
right?
ready, yeah, and untapped. And there's so many like that. Yes. So when you come in, it's hard. I mean, I'm not saying that businesses don't succeed with a market that's still niched. In fact, they do very well. But the nurturing and the growing of that market together with your business is really a tall order. It's not that easy. So in our case, we were very lucky that the market was ready and raring to just buy, but they couldn't find the products that they wanted to get for themselves. So that's how we started, and we were lucky that in the beginning it was free flowing. The hardest part, I guess, for our business at that time was looking for outlets because there were no shopping malls and department stores. You have to remember, even in White Gold, we were very happy and thankful until this day to the Gaisano family, especially the family of Joseph Gaisano, who gave us that big break because, souvenirs and Filipiniana items were relegated to the 5th floor. Back near the toilet area, right? No one. It was always there, and then you pick up items there. They were all dusty.
Yeah.
No one really went up to the 5th floor, and because of my I think my zeal and my passion for my concept and the business, I think the decision makers of White Gold at that time, saw that we have potential here, and then gave me a brilliant space. So I think that was the biggest break. And that was the toughest part, looking for outlets. So at that time, there weren't too many department stores. Many of the department stores were in downtown where not too many tourists go to. So I had to open carts and kiosks in resorts, in native restaurants where you have tourists visiting. So yeah, that was the biggest
Not everything
biggest
out.
issue. Yeah. Not everything, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you bring us from that time until now? So how many branches are we talking about?
Well,
how big is the company?
Yeah, we have over 100 outlets nationwide. This includes carts and kiosks and store-in-store and department stores. We're a pretty sizable company, I'd like to believe. And it's not just that. I think longevity. There are not very many companies that have lasted over 25 years.
Yeah.
So especially in retail. If you go around the malls now, there are a lot of vacant spaces. Retail's the industry stuff. We're just lucky that we're in the tourism industry. And incidentally, we're selling stuff and we're partly obviously retail. So we're very proud of that. And we've evolved into other tourism-related businesses in tours, and
You have
and
the
then we
hotel
also have
type,
the value hotels.
value hotel,
Yeah,
and then
so
the bangka also.
yes, that one. So they're all interrelated, tapping the same market. So there.
All right. Uh,
Yeah, so I'm actually curious. So Cebu was like the first thing that mainly
Yes,
the Prince,
yes,
right?
yes,
Cebu,
yes.
and then you have another place. And so how was that? How did that happen? Like, what province you choose?
Yes, good question. Again, you asked me earlier, no, whether I had that vision of growing the business. I did. In fact, in less than 1 year, we were already in 2, 3 different places. Yeah, we were, I think, one of the first national brands to be in Boracay in the early.
So that was your,
in the
like-
early 90s. Yes, yes, and early on, I really had the vision. Maybe 2, 3 years into the business, I really had the vision of using our shirts as mini billboards of up and coming tourist destinations. And there were a lot of destinations where we penetrated. I mean, and tried to sell, but because the market wasn't there yet, it was very difficult for us to grow. So we had to pull back and then choose destinations that were already ripe, like Baguio, Boracay, Subic at the time, Manila, and then decided to focus on those areas. So right now we're in over 14, 15 Philippine destinations already.
I'm also curious about the competition. Was there any competition?
Yes, there always are. So many but a lot of them are local competitors in a particular destination. There are a few national department store based competitors, but that's about it. I mean, there's really no major competitor. Well, I think we also try to, and I say this with all modesty, but we also try to pay attention to even the smallest competitors. Yeah, we never take them for granted and make sure they don't grow. Because they're harder to battle once they become bigger, right? So
Yeah.
I've been an athlete all my life, so my competitive spirit's there.
I think it's
And-
necessary for a business, right?
Yeah, of
Like,
course.
of
You have
course.
to have that killer instinct, so to speak.
Yeah, so I'm actually curious because you're in. Let's say if I would like to put it in it's a T-shirt company, right? So like a lot of people can copy it. It's not like a lot of people can't like produce this stuff, and
Well,
that's
yeah.
why that's one reason
Yes,
why
yes.
nobody actually like caught up with you and
Well, yes, yeah. Copying is, you said it right. I mean, during Sinulog time, small companies and really big multinational companies copy our stuff to the detail. I won't name names. You guys listening there know who you are. To the detail. They use our models.
Yeah.
They use our designs. They wait for, our sneak peek early, sometimes in December, then they copy it.
copy it.
Yeah. So we're just very vigilant. We were reported to DTI. We work very closely with their IP division. But yeah, I mean, again, as they say, copying is the biggest form of flattery. I don't see it as that. I see it as an annoyance. And, when you do that, all the more I feel it adds fuel to the fire. And our competitiveness kicks even further in, so.
You know what I love about Island Souvenir? I love something campaign where
Yes,
you
yes.
personalize that.
Right.
That was
That
really,
was such a big thing.
Yeah.
That caught on. That was such a big thing, and I think we were the first that kind of rekindled, because that concept was used decades ago in New York. I love New York. I think about in the 70s, but then that had died down, and we kind of, I think, were one of the brands that brought about a resurgence in that whole I Heart campaign. That was
it was
almost
crazy.
10 years ago.
Everybody wants to have their name on the shirt.
Everybody had to have that.
Apples.
But that one, that one, admittedly, I didn't expect that to really explode. We knew it was a great concept. We knew personalizing items was always something customers wanted, but we didn't expect that campaign to really explode. People were calling us. prominent people to anybody we're calling our marketing office, hoping that they could grace the billboard or can they model. And we were so surprised. And
Was that all over the Philippines?
all over the
Yes.
Philippines, yeah, all over the
like,
Philippines, all over the Philippines, and
Crazy. I
yeah.
mean, everybody that I know, my family bought a shirt
Yeah.
with their name on it.
Some
It was
even
just so.
copied it,
No, but
right?
you know what? You know what it is really? I don't think that would have been successful without a genuine, true love of place.
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly.
And coming from Cebu, and Kibao na kas mga Cebuano, I mean, we really love our place so much. And I think that just resonated. So when you touch a nerve, and then it just takes off and,
Filipinos are really proud. Like, we're always proud of Pacquiao. And,
Yeah, right.
And I think that's a really nice
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Right? So, was that like the biggest break, one of the biggest breaks that you had in your
No, it wasn't really a break. It was really like how do you say, a hit? I would say more of a hit, right? But then again,
your shops are like crowded.
yeah,
Every time I pass there.
Yeah. It's
great.
but then again, going back to business ideas and stuff. You never know where these ideas come from. That's why you always pay attention. I remember. I mean, the iHeart campaign when it was, we were the real story there was that after Sinulog, we needed to come up with something that would sustain it the following months, right? So you know what? February is the love month, and I remember we broached the idea of doing an iHeart campaign, and it was funny because I always consult with my management team, and I have a very decentralized method of decision making. So I threw it there very casually, and all of them said, I think we shouldn't. I don't think there's really potential. So, you know what? I was outvoted, really, really. And we run a democracy here. I think I'd like to believe. So, for a while I go, okay, let's move on to the next. And then for some reason there was something in me that said, let's no harm in trying. So of course, sometimes there are days when you just have to overturn decisions, and then so there, and that's what happened, and then it took off. Yeah.
So, let's talk a little bit about, you've been really successful in the Islands Group, in the brands. Let's talk a little bit about certain failures that you always remember. That kind of, they said some failures define us.
There are a lot. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot. Again, that's part of it, no?
And also, what lessons did you learn from that?
Yeah, I know it's cliche, that it's you learn from your failures, but you, first of all, I think early on you really realize that life is never really a bed of roses. Now, the minute you know the dynamic of one's life, then you're able to dodge certain failures. You're able to rise from them, expect them. Some are more painful than the others. And then, of course, when I was young and I had a streak of successful businesses, you develop hubris. No, you think almost everything you come up with becomes successful. And then I realized, I had a fried chicken, the chicken Tagala concept. I did that in the 90s, and I was so confident it would, the concept obviously is doing well because you see so many fried chicken stalls. And I didn't want it I didn't want to make it like a Jollibee, nothing like that. I wanted it like the Tagala concept, diba? Are you familiar with that chicken? Yeah. So there, I wanted it to stall, but that didn't take off. And a few other businesses where you fail. But then again, at the end of the day, it's a business. Basta lang I'm very conservative until today. I like to think big but start small. So, and then you become, when you're young, you're very daring and very, you're there. So you become very bold.
What's the balance between, overthinking and taking action? Sometimes, or too aggressive or overthinking?
For young entrepreneurs, I always say, shoot first before you think. So, in other words, when you overanalyze, again, we talked about that earlier. If you over-romanticize everything, it really nothing. What you need to do is really get down to action and gain traction and put it and thrust it there to reality. So you have a better gauge whether what you're doing is palatable, has potential or not. So Bottom line is don't overthink. Don't overanalyze. A business plan might help, but it's not a necessity. For as long as, you have focus and you're on top of the game. That's the most important thing. You really shouldn't, and I say this, I've been invited numerous times to give talks to students and young entrepreneurs. And I always say this, and I don't think I've heard this enough. You have to align your personal goals with your career or business goals. That's very important. I think you have to examine that. You have to ask yourself, why are you getting into business? And you have to be truthful. And I say this more, emphatically to the young, because a lot of the young entrepreneurs today aren't really looking to build an empire or are not looking to make money. They just like the likes on Facebook. And it's an egotistical thing, and sometimes if your focus is there, then your business, your business will not flourish. That's for sure. In fact, just recently, I don't know if you've seen the movie on Netflix, this documentary on Fire, FYRE.
Yeah.
I just seen it.
The greatest show that never
Early.
happened.
The guy, obviously the idea was brilliant, but you could tell that they were just, the decision making was really to stroke his ego, right? And he was so in denial. So I think that's the most important thing, that you put it out there. If you're relatively young, start small. Always start small. You can always grow your business. Just recently, with the passing of the richest man in Southeast Asia, Henry C., he wasn't always this big, obviously. He started selling surplus shoes from the army before he opened his first store. Yeah. So everybody starts small. Don't look for that instant fame or instant money right away. So again, I don't want to go, too deep into it, but what I suggest is before you start getting into business, align your personal dreams and goals with your business and career goals. Why are you getting into this business? Aside from your business answer, look for your personal answer.
Yeah.
And
Do you have any tips, by the way, if you to figure out what your alignment is like?
Well, first
Could
of
it
all,
be traveling or what?
no. Well, if we're talking about ideas lang, we have an abundance of ideas, especially among the youth. I am so floored. When I was growing up, I was like the only idea guy in the room. Really, literally. Because, and in Cebu, we didn't have a lot of creative businesses. A lot of the businesses in Cebu were in trading, hardwares, shipping.
Yeah.
Not on the creative field, And so when I was young, this was almost 30 years ago, I was the idea guy, and any idea I would bring out would be exciting. But today, almost every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the room has brilliant ideas, right? I mean, it's amazing how the youth are today. Even your podcast, I think, it's very brave and ideas fantastic, and you're ahead of the game. Stuff like that, no? But the important thing there is, why are you doing this? And you have to be honest with yourself. I mean, it's very noble that you want to help promote the Cebuanos and entrepreneurship and so on and so forth. But go dig deeper. I mean, are you married already,
Yes.
Joseph? And you married?
Dave,
Soon to be. Good luck and
Tomorrow.
congratulations. Will that feed your children?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you need to monetize what you're doing also. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so this must be maybe you'll answer this in a way that you will get portion of what you just said. But this it's very important for us to because a lot of the people that would listen to this podcast or are listening right now are beginners. So basically they are starters, or
Okay.
maybe they're about to start, or they're maybe
Yes.
they probably just registered their business or
Yeah.
something like that. Okay, so if we were to, I'm gonna give you a hypothetical scenario,
Sure.
right? I'm gonna take you to an island that looks and feels like Cebu, but you don't know anyone, so your influence, your connections are not there anymore, and you're given
You don't own anything, basically.
You don't own
just
anything?
have 10,000 perhaps or 30,000.
But you will have a housing and may food for some time.
Okay.
Can you walk us through like the first few things that are very essential for you that you think, okay, these are going to be the foundational things that I will be doing?
Okay. My first question is, why am I in that new island?
It's just hypothetical, basically.
No, that's a serious question.
Yeah.
No, it really is a serious question. It's like, so that's why it goes back. Guys, it's a good scenario, but that's how I think it's important for you to really dissect in the beginning your personal goals and your
Sure.
yeah. So my question is, why are you there in the first place? Why did
Right.
you leave that bustling place?
Right.
See, so
Yeah.
so that's the beginning already. It's like, do I want more quiet time for my family? Was the previous location too noisy? But then there's bigger market there in the previous location. Here I have to start from scratch. So
Right.
it starts there.
Yes.
So you, in a way, what I'm trying at the end of the day, I'm trying to say you control your destiny, really. So that's the first step. Why are you in that deserted island? Why? What are you? Do you want to be a kingpin there? Do you want to be the big fish in a small pond, or you want to be a small fish in a big pond? So that alone is a big decision maker, diba? So you get
That
it.
like propels you to where you're going.
You
Exactly.
choose. Why did
Right.
you leave in the first place? I mean, there. So I've been asked before several times, why are you not in Manila? I have a few friends that have moved to Manila because they want to grow their business. Two things. I felt that it's the lifestyle in Cebu, although it's no longer true, was much better.
Right.
I think a balanced life is very essential to me, especially with the growing family. And I felt my business, especially tourism, was Visaya-centric, right? So that gave me more, confidence in staying put. But of course, I entertained the idea of moving to Manila. But just like most Cebuanos, they never really want to leave Cebu, right? So I was one of them. And so that's why your question, Joseph, is very critical. I mean, why did you move there in the first place? So you ask that's a bigger picture question, right? So if you want to start, then you scope the island. If you decide to go there, that new island you spoke about, scope the scenario. Always. Even if you have ideas in your head, you need to recorrect or reorient yourself with a new environment. So you go
Right.
around and check what's going on and then listen. Excuse me. The important thing is to always listen. Listen to complaints, listen to problems, listen to gaps, and the answers are there.
Right.
So you cannot come in, again with that romantic idea in your head and then bulldozing, this is gonna work here, and then so the
Yeah.
important thing is that you pay attention. Until today, I always like looking out my window, looking at new businesses pop up. I look at vendors, what they sell, how they sell, why they're selling it, the manner in which they sell. And that's where I get a lot of inspiration and ideas, and stuff like that. So you have to pay attention. Don't get caught up in your own world, in your mind, and where everything is nice and
Right.
fancy and dandy and everything's working well and there are no problems in your office and products are beautiful with no quality issues and people were just buying your products like anything. It's never like that in business. Right?
true.
You really need to go where the action is and get your hands dirty, so to speak.
Okay. My next question is, still from this beginner mindset, right? Beginner mindset. Okay, let's because I really want to get an answer. Like, if you're going to restart now, and given that your goal is to start a business, you talk about listening, right? How do you know that you have it? You have that, that
Idea.
yeah, like what? Because there are like probably 10, 15 different ideas.
You will- okay.
Validate it, right?
Okay,
Yeah,
we keep talking about startups and a beginner, right? I only have one simple advice to startups and beginner, especially the young.
Yeah.
Start now. Just start. Put it out there. Nothing's gonna happen to you.
something.
Believe me, putting out a product or selling there is much better than putting a really bad selfie of yourself.
Right.
That's more damaging than putting out a failed product there. The environment today, especially with social media, is so conducive for the young and for business. I always used to say, in the past, when I wanted to sell something like a toy figurine when I was a kid or whatever, my only customers were my cousins or my neighbors. That's it. Today, you put it on Facebook, you put it on Instagram, you put it on any social media platform. You announce it on Twitter. You have thousands of people, and if you have the right product, you'll know instantly. You'll know instantly. There's no harm in trying. Sure. As I said, why I liken it to selfies because. Typical Filipino ba or samot pa sa Cebuano, maikog ba, mauwaw. Yeah. Diba? But believe me, when you're older, you can just look back, mas makaikog pa itong mga uban selfie nga inyong gipamutang, diba? Then putting out or trying out a business.
Now you're spending, some time with startups and coaching.
A lot, ever since before. I've been
before.
Ever since, even when I was starting up, I was already with Go Negosyo. I've been with Go Negosyo for like 12, 13 years already. So I've been with. That's why I understand the psyche of students because ever since I was young, I was always in classrooms. In fact, lately I haven't been. In fact, not as much as before. So I was, maybe you were still growing, you were still in school, but I was always in classrooms talking to trying to inspire students and young entrepreneurs. Anyway.
Yeah. So the question is, watching all these different, budding entrepreneurs, what are the things that, maybe a couple of things that you think, every single entrepreneur should work on this, but they're not really working on it?
Yes. Okay, good question. And I must have said it in so many ways earlier. But there should really be a commitment to make the business endure. Because a lot of, I hate to say this, that while I mentioned, I was very, how do you say, very, it's commendable that a lot of the young entrepreneurs have brilliant ideas. Many of them don't have the sustaining power. You've seen a lot of businesses.
Yes.
Sikat kayo. Grabe kay kasikat. And then wag tangasan. Yeah. You see a lot. Because why? I think we are in an era where success for us is fame. In other words...
So are you saying it's not necessary?
No, of course not. No. In fact, no. That's what... going back again to... I said you need to align your personal goals and business goals and career goals. If your personal goal is to be famous, then there's a problem there. Yeah. So you need to... Yeah, but the sad thing is I've seen a lot of young people who go into business or pretend to go into business to achieve fame, and then when they achieve that, all the hype and popularity and all the likes, so to speak, then they say, I think my job is done. But what I'd like to challenge the youth today, ideas are there already. I think this generation and the next Generation Z, have so much ideas. But what you need to challenge yourself in pretty much everything that you do is longevity. Everything, we grew up. I think you guys are in the tail end of Generation X, I think. Or partly millennial. You're a millennial, actually. Yeah. I pity your generation. But no. Kidding aside. Everything in your generation, especially the millennials, are very fleeting. You like everything fast, right? It's so funny when you read on Facebook now, and then there's a news report. It tells you how many minutes the...
Yeah.
Don't you think? It's like a 1 minute read. So, gone are the days where you really allow things to grow organically.
Yeah.
As they say, anything that goes up fast comes down fast or even faster, right? So that's what I'd like to challenge look for something that with the intention of sustaining it.
Awesome.
Sustaining your business.
Guys, if you're listening to that, please rewind it and those were gems.
Put it
right?
in loop. Right? So Jay, we normally end this this section of the podcast with our learnings, Dave and I. So, Dave, would you like to start?
Yeah, of course. This one thing that really, hit me was that fame is not equal success, right? So, if you're thinking of starting a business because of your ego of becoming famous and you do hit it, I mean, that's not really the goal here. It's about longevity and, enduring through the times, like making it. It's really nice to think about starting something that would last 50 or 100 or several generations.
Of course. I mean, especially if you're a family man, you want to, number one, what do you call this? How do you say, provide for your family, and not only for this generation, but also the following generations.
Right. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Dave. So in my case, one of the things that you always go back to is always your why, your reason, and that's very important to me. The second thing is like just paying attention, and the idea that the answer is out is just there. Yeah, it's not like sometimes when we have a new project or we want to go into like a new business, sometimes it feels like the answer is so complicated, or the answer is hidden. But like you said, just paying attention, listening to complaints, and looking at different gaps are opportunities. And how do you just relation to that? What for you is problem?
No, a lot. I mean,
Like what's like? How do you see problem? Like if there's a problem that goes into your desk, how do you?
well,
mentally
just like
attack?
anybody else, number one, if you've been in the business long enough,
Yeah.
you know which problems are just negligible and which problems are real problems,
Right.
right? So just like any human being, you have your, innate reaction. Either you're sad, you're scared,
Yeah.
you're pissed. That's normal.
Right.
But then snap out of it right away. That's normal. The important thing is
In
snap
your
out
case,
of it
do you-
right away, and then you approach the problem methodically.
Right. Yeah. Is that like throughout the years, like you've been doing this over 20 years now?
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the years, is that like reaction becomes like more automatic, more?
Yes, you become better at it. And then the best thing further is you learn to anticipate before
Yeah,
the problem happens.
exactly right.
So you become more careful. But of course that comes with experience and age. And oftentimes I'd like we to believe that we've been able to deter certain problems because we've learned from them in the beginning. The important thing, and I keep saying this, and some of my favorite, I'm not really into sayings or cliches, but one of the things that I believe in is really, when you have problems that come into your life, whether personal or in business, and these tragedies, I always believe that oftentimes these problems and tragedies or setbacks in your life, if handled properly, becomes your defining moment. I believe in that. Even in business. I'll give you a classic example. Jollibee, in the beginning, their business was selling ice cream, a franchise of Magnolia, right? Their whole family business. And then during rainy season, business was so bad that they were about to close. So the only way for them to keep their business afloat was for them to serve hot food outside of ice cream. So they started making burgers. Now, to many, that problem would be, the low sales and the rainy season would already be the ending of their business. And then you close shop, and then it's up to you how you want to move on. But in this case, that's why pivoting, if all of the things I mentioned, you kind of mesh them together. So if you pivot a bit, you try it out. As you said, how will you know if your product will sell? We're an ice cream parlor. Why will people want our hamburgers? But they just did it. It's not going to harm the business anyway. And they did. And then it gained traction because they just did it. And, as you know, Jollibee is one of the most successful businesses coming out of the Philippines, buying food chains left and right in the U.S. and in China. So then, going back to what you said, Joseph, that's true. I'm glad you that was what you picked out. No, I mean, if you guys are basketball fans and the Philadelphia Sixers now have a term, trust the process, right? So oftentimes you trust the process. I mean, both in your personal life and in business. Especially for the millennials and the youth today, they want instant gratification and instant answers. I like what you said. Oftentimes the answers won't come instantly. You need to trust the process. You need to ask questions, and you'll be surprised how the answer presents itself at the most unexpected time.
Awesome. There's a quote that best explains that when the you know the teach
When
the
the student is ready, teacher will
teacher
appear.
will arrive.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So now let's move on to our quick
Last part, that is our
lightning round. All right. So Jay, I sent you the questions, but
Sure.
anyway, let me just ask you. Question number one. Question number one is: do you have a morning routine? And if you have, what is it?
Not really. Not really. Especially lately, where I'm nearing 50, so I'm in the office already, not as early. Especially now that I'm building a new house, so in the mornings for a couple of hours, I spend my time in the construction site. And then I come to the office.
Yeah.
But I'm not really a creature of habit. I mean, I don't have a routine.
You have a lot of
basically.
variation.
I wouldn't say a lot of variation, but it's really not a routine. I just do my emails before coming to the office.
Right.
Because I don't waste time doing emails in the office. So I have scheduled time for emails, which is in the morning and in the evening when I'm at home. And I've also just recently, I'd like to call it management by WhatsApp, meaning
What's that?
we use WhatsApp.
Yeah.
I mean, I have
Everybody's on WhatsApp in the office.
no, but yeah, everybody. I mean, that's how I get a better feel of what's going on in the office. Even when so I have a WhatsApp thread for my sales department,
Right.
a WhatsApp thread for my finance department.
Chat there, right?
They chat there, so you know the good thing is because when a manager says something, everybody can dissect it and understands, and everybody knows what's going on. With the traffic nowadays, it doesn't make sense to call meetings often to the office, right? It takes 1 hour, 2 hours.
That's true.
It doesn't make sense. But in my WhatsApp, my management, you're in touch on an everyday basis. Wow. It's buzzing. So, especially when our stores close at about 9:00, there's nonstop sales reports and stuff like that. So, what's good about that is unlike before when you have weekly meetings and sales presentations and reporting, so you look at the report and then you analyze it right there and then. Today, because I get it every day, it becomes part of you. So it becomes common knowledge. You absorb everything. And you don't have to wait for the monthly report anymore because you know it by heart, right? So that's helped me a lot.
And you read that with your email time.
Yeah, my email time, my WhatsApp time. So
Your WhatsApp time is like any part of the day.
yes, any part of the day. Awesome. Yes. So and I like what you said. That's true. So whatever they're discussing, you just pay attention. I don't butt in most of the time. I just let it be.
Read behind the scenes.
I know, of course, I read. It's it's required that everybody has to understand. So the culture that's going on in your company and how certain individuals react, and so on and so forth. So it's nice. I mean, it's very. I have to say it's been very effective for my company. Yeah, and because I have a very good management team. I really just join meetings. Of course, I call meetings, but oftentimes I join meetings and listen to their exchange.
Next question is, who or what inspires you?
I mentioned this earlier. Of course, in my early days, it was my parents, especially my dad, who I was very exposed to. I learned a lot from him. But while I look up to big businessmen, I equally pay attention to up-and-coming startups, regardless of what business. As I mentioned, I like looking out my window. I like what the vendors are selling, why they put this fruit in front of that fruit, why do they use this kind of light, how do they, and so on and so forth. So ideas and inspiration really comes from all over. And I constantly read books as well, just to stimulate my mind and get ideas and learnings, new management styles, and so on and so forth. So they come from everywhere, really.
Speaking of books, do you have a books or show recommendation to our audience?
Well, yeah, for the young audience, that we've been talking about, and I think which is primarily is your main audience, I suggest go to Netflix, watch Fire, Fyre. It's about... what do they call it? The biggest...
the greatest show that never happened.
Yeah, biggest party, beach party, music festival. staged by this high-profile, hotshot young tech entrepreneur named Billy McFarland. And he must have been living in a different world to really believe that he could pull it off. Until the last minute, he thought he could. He was so enamored by the fame and the image that he was trying to uphold that he really wasn't running a business at all. So I think there's a lot of learnings there in so many levels. So I just saw that the other day. So that's what's freshest in my mind. The other, the book that I highly recommend, especially for startups, is as I mentioned earlier, Making Ideas Happen by Scott Berkin, I think, or Belkin. Scott Belkin, Making Ideas Happen. It shows how, as you mentioned, Joseph, how one should take out your ideas from your romantic mind and thrust it into reality so that you can gain traction. That's one. And then lately I've been reading a lot of, I've reread the book of Jim Collins, Built to Last. Yeah. It's different when you read that book in different stages in your business and different stages in your lives, and then you start to see it from different perspectives. So there. I'm also reading a book called Istanbul. I think it's by the author called I forget his name, Okran Pamuk or something. He's a Turkish national, a award-winning novelist. He talks about Istanbul, and it's a memoir actually of how Istanbul used to be in the old traditional times and how the culture has changed and pretty much similar to what's happening in Cebu. So these are the books that I've been reading lately. Watch that Netflix documentary.
Yeah, all of those links will be provided on our show notes page, which will be thebigpicture.ph/episode 44. Yeah. So my next question in the lightning round is: do you consider yourself successful?
I've been asked that a number of times. I think success isn't really measured by your material wealth, no. Although everybody seems to use that as the gauge. I think success is achieved when you are able to put yourself in a position where you have the luxury to live the life that you imagine. That's good. Is that too?
That's actually a really good answer.
That's great.
Yeah,
Great.
but you really strive for that. Meaning you work so hard, or when I say work, I'm not talking about just office work or business work. I'm talking about work, making yourself better, putting that effort to balance your time in life. Because what good is it if you have all the money in the world and not have time to yourself and your family, right? And your children. So, as the saying goes, nobody's ever said in their deathbed that I should have spent more time in the office, right? So I think to be able to put yourself in a position where you live the life that you imagine for yourself is the greatest measure of success.
This is the second to the last question. So, a lot of of people that, would write to us, they're either working on a job they didn't like, or they're maybe outside the country, they want to go home. They feel like they have less option than regular folks. What advice can you give them?
The Philippines is bustling today. It really is the place to be in. Investors from all over the world are looking at the Philippines. We're one of the hottest investment destinations in the world. But that's too highfalutin. Let's just talk about the local business scene. We're becoming aside from Indonesia, we have the biggest population in Southeast Asia of about 130 million and fast growing with a lot of disposable income. The middle class segment of our society is growing more and more. That means there's a lot of money to be spent. So people are looking for things to spend on. Pay attention to that. Unless you're a nurse working abroad, actually many places don't pay you much more than the Philippines does these days. No, especially the BPOs and so on and so forth. But what I'd like to encourage the OFWs, is the difference with OFWs aside from the Philippines, it's really the Indians that are also seen all over the rest of the world, right? The difference with a lot of the Indians is after they work abroad, They come home bringing their best practices and their know-how, and either they help a company grow or they set up their own business. The problem with most Filipinos, if I may say, is they come home thinking of retirement.
Like that.
Diba?
Yeah, that's true.
Or
Yeah.
just living abroad.
Yeah, or living abroad. Yeah, but I mean, you talked about the potentials of coming home. If you come home, and eventually you
have
will come
international
home,
practice.
you have the best practices there. The problem is, I have a question. Why do you switch it off and on? When you're abroad, you bring out the best of you. You come home, you switch it off, and then as if that was your past, and you don't. There's no semblance of you
Yeah.
when you
Like
come
that.
home. So my suggestion, and that's not only for self for self growth, no, but it's also to help the economy and companies grow. If you work for top notch company abroad, try to come home and bring your best practices to a top notch company locally. So that company grows into a more world class entity. So I'd like to encourage a lot of OFWs who I believe are, I mean, I know it's been said, I mean, who are really local heroes that have constantly been bringing in remittances to the Philippines, that the Philippines should be an avenue or a path that they should really consider. And whether you want to set up a business or work for a company with your training capability, you should have a lot of opportunities. And if I may add, there's something that's very close to my heart now. I've been working with public schools lately, although that I haven't gotten back to that. And we've been looking to DepEd with the K-12 program, and students are allowed to choose tracks. I'm made to understand that there are entrepreneurship subjects in it. So, and the sad thing is, until now, I don't think the curriculum for entrepreneurship is still there. The guideline is there, but the curriculum and the manual isn't there yet. I think we should exploit that, and we should really take the advantage of giving giving entrepreneurship a serious push, especially in public schools. Especially among the youth, because the best thing I think that would be able to do is to give the impoverished youth the idea that to be successful doesn't mean just landing a good job. Diba? It empowers them if they know that other than landing a good job, they have another path, which is entrepreneurship. That is very empowering. So it's something I hope to continue doing. Admittedly, I haven't been able to look into it the past few months, but it's something that I feel we should pay attention to. And when you grow up having that kind of mentality that entrepreneurship is actually another path, you become very empowered growing up. And whether you end up being an OFW abroad or what, and you carry that, it's very empowering. You as an OFW, you might even think of bringing products back to the Philippines. Or whatever you're doing there, you replicate it in the Philippines. So there's so much potential.
All right. So last question is that if ever someone needs to contact you, I know you check emails just once. Yeah. So how can they reach
Or
you?
about the island.
First of all, I'm on Facebook. You can message me there.
Yeah. I tried it.
Yeah, you can. I mean,
It works.
No, I mean, it's my, since I don't go out very often, I'm very accessible there. I mean, I get a lot of messages there from entrepreneurs and business contacts and suppliers, and just message me there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And of course, you can find all the Island Souvenirs. They have a website, right?
Yes, we do have a website, and if you want to contact our business, you can email us at info@theislandsgroup.com. I mean, even that email comes to me. So so yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You can see
All right.
it's really hands-on.
Yeah.
All right. So that wraps our interview with, of course, Jay here. And anything you want to add, Joseph?
Yeah, thank you. I'm just so happy to have this interview.
My pleasure. Very thank you for having me in your podcast. I think it's a brilliant idea. I hope this stays on. Again, I challenge you guys to make this to sustain this. I think it's good to get the word out there.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right,
guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And, as usual, go to thebigpicture.ph/podcast, and you will see our episode. This one goes to Facebook Live, and you'll soon see the official release. What, a month from now?
Yeah, probably, yes.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jay. This has been Joe.
This is Dave, and
And
this
we're
is
signing off.